Good evening. So yesterday we was discussing about chapter number 2 of economic survey, and I told you that this chapter is specifically important from prelims point of view, because in this chapter they have deal with what? Financial market and financial institutions in India. If you'll see the prelims question paper, every year there are, see last 4, you will find at least 2 questions they are asking on financial market. If you will go back like from 2012, 13, 14 onwards, hardly they are asking any question on financial market. But in last 4 years, they have asked question on financial market, specifically terminology based. Okay, so they ask the question on terminology based questions in the exam. And these terminologies are basically, they are what? These terminologies are basically which are recently in the news. Why? Because this financial market is a very broad area. Very broad area. In fact, there are many courses on the financial market itself. You have to study for 3 months, 6 months only on what? Financial market. So it is a very big and vast area. So do not fall in the trap by reading any particular book on the financial market. Absolutely not required. Keep a close eye what is coming in the newspaper related to what? Financial markets. Read those articles, you will find certain terminology, and UPSC generally asks the question related to that terminology which is in the news. Okay, they are in the news, and that is why it is being focused by whom? UPSC. For example, recently SEBI has changed the norm. SEBI has changed the norm regarding listing of MSMEs. So those companies who are from MSME section. So for them listing in the market, SEBI have changed certain criteria. SEBI also have given a guidelines for finfluencers. There are finfluencers who try to influence the market behavior by giving their expert advice. Fine. So certain times the guidelines are being given, certain specific terminologies are being used. So you have to read that. Do not dependent just only on what? Just only on what is coming in the compilations of the magazine. Fine. Whether it is 65 or 365, it's not works. Why? UPSC also have. They can also open the site and download the material, which is available on Telegram. So only you are not using the Telegram, they are also using the Telegram. Fine. So the conventional material which is available, they also reading those materials, so they know that what students are reading, what is popular right now. Like you can go for a Google search for particular material, 4 or 5 results will come. You can click those results and see the material and download it. So same process they can also do. Fine. In 2011, UPSC started asking question on current affairs. And at that point of time, one coaching institute, fine, and they are issuing their monthly magazine. Okay, a lot of questions came from that magazine, and they claimed openly that our magazine is so popular. Next year again, many of the questions, actually UPSC was changing. Means before that they are asking static questions, only static questions. Then they changed the trend and they started asking static question, current question, static question, current question. So that is why whatever is in the current compiled by properly them, that is asked in what? UPSC. And that created have buzz. Ki current affairs do from this. Current affairs do from this. 4th year. So this trend continued for 3 years. 4th year, UPSC also came in the picture. And it was a rumor that certain people came from there and they have collected the material from the entire market. And from 2014 onwards, rooted. No single question from that so-called magazine. Why? Because they have changed the pattern. Rather than asking separately static, dynamic, they have merged both. Now what they have did in last 3-4 years, if you'll see, one statement is coming from direct NCERT. They are just copying and pasting. So one statement from NCERT, one statement from any reference concept, then related current news. So in this way, they are asking 3 statement based question. So they are keep changing. So in this way, rather than chasing them, how they are going to change, you have to make sure that basics should be very strong and you are aware of what is running in the current news. So reading basic books and notes plus your current affairs through the newspaper, more than enough. More than enough. Nothing is required. No need for Ramesh, Ganesh, Mahesh, Dinesh, Suresh. Not required. Not required. Focus on specific content only. That's it. All right. So UPSC have a history to ask many questions from financial section. Fine. Financial market, 1 or 2 questions, and rest of the question are coming from banking and RBI's monetary policy. All right. So in this chapter, they have reviewed what is the situation. Okay. And they have found that banking system is working very well. Banking system is working very well. There is no issue in the banking system. Why they have mentioned this thing? Because last decade of 21st century means last decade, that is from 2010 to 2020. This decade was specifically very problematic for banking, especially in India. Why? Banking system was having very high NPAs, non-performing assets. Fine? Very high non-performing assets. And it reached to the alarming level by 2014-15. Alarming level was non-performing assets was there. Then banking system has started clean up of their balance sheet. Fine. So while clean up in the balance sheet, they have taken certain initiatives, and because of that initiative, problem was not just solved. In fact, another problem came, and that is known as twin balance sheet problem. Twin balance sheet problem. So what is twin balance sheet problem? Generally in the balance sheet, we have incomings and outgoings. What is going out and what is coming. So in bank's balance sheet, basically, there are 2 things. One is deposits and loans. Deposits and loans. So what bank have found that deposits is shrinking, and at the same time, the loan profile of bank is also what? Shrinking. Why? Because rise of what? NPA, non-performing assets. So non-performing assets are rising, but at the same time, what? Deposits also what? Decreasing. So banks started facing twin balance sheet problem. So Reserve Bank of India, Government of India have taken certain policy initiatives, and as I told you in the last class, there is a CRAR, also known as capital adequacy ratio. So this capital adequacy ratio is required as per Basel norm. How much? 8%. Fine. But RBI have fixed the condition what? 9%. So one reason for having a higher, because banks was facing twin balance sheet problem, plus if banks need higher CRAR, then government need to capitalize. Government need to capitalize whom? Public sector bank. So government started capitalizing. Capitalizing means government started providing funds to whom? Government started providing funds to public sector banks. So in this way, the much needed liquidity which was required for the banks, they have got it. And in order to clean the balance sheet, banks have taken 2 initiatives. One is provisioning. One is provisioning. Other initiative taken by them is known as haircut. At Javed Habib. No, not that haircut. Haircut is a specific term used in the banking. Fine. So these 2 terms are important. So banks went for provisioning as well as haircut, and that is why banks are able to clean their balance sheet. Fine. So that cleaning of the balance sheet took almost 7 to 8 years, but if you will see and compare 2015 and 2025, banks are really in the better position what they were earlier. So in that context, economic survey found that banks are relatively better. But as we know that high inflation is there, fine, high inflation is there, global headwinds is there. So high inflation, global headwinds, GDP is shrinking. So in that context, the profitability of banks is also what? Reducing. So banks' profitability is reducing. So when we discuss about banks' profitability, how to find out how bank is making profit, good profit, bad profit, or what profit? So in the context of bank, when we want to understand profitability of the bank, we use the concept of NIN. Can anyone decode what is NIN here? What is NIN here? Net internet. Net income neutral. Don't try, otherwise I will also forget. No, it is a net interest income. Fine. So actually, net interest income concept is used. Bank give the interest. When you will deposit the money, bank will give the interest. And when bank will give the loan, bank do what? When bank give the loan, bank charge the interest. So the difference of these two interest, is called NIN. And through this, bank's profitability is checked. Fine. Bank's profitability is checked with these two. So there are few concepts which they have mentioned in the second chapter of economic survey. They have given an overall picture that banking system is stable. India's banking system is stable. But how it is stable, they have used basically three concepts. Fine. Return of equity, return of asset, and net interest earning. So these three concepts they have used, and on the basis of these three concepts, they have evaluated the performance of India's banking system, and they said that after evaluating these three indicators, we found that banks are working well and stable. There is no such kind of the threat of bank run like situation. And we hope that banks will also play a more positive role in the economy. But if you will closely see what is happening in the Indian economy over last few years, the role of bank is expanding in one area but shrinking in other area. At a point of time in India, whenever people are looking for investments, they are looking towards where? FD, fixed deposit, or LIC. Fine, LIC and FD. These are two household names for the people to go for what? Savings. Fine, savings. But gradually, the Gen Z, fine, the Gen Z have different idea in their mind, and they are looking and focusing more towards what? Financial markets. Having an ability to take risk. And that Gen Z says that we are having a capability to take risk. Our earlier generation was not having such kind of the capability. This is the kind of attitude of Gen Z, we have an ability to take the risk, whereas the earlier generation was not having that capacity to take the risk. One question to all of them. What your father have given to you and what his father given to him. See the difference, then you will get the idea that the risk-taking ability is based on who is backing you. Yes. Fine. The ability to take the risk based on what? Who is backing you? You are in the examination hall and you are comfortably able to clear the prelims. Because you know that somewhere around 75 questions you have corrected. Can you take the risk of next 3-4 questions? very easily. Because you are at what? 75 plus correct. You have this estimation that I am correcting 75 plus. So you can easily take the risk of 1 or 2 questions. No issue. But if you are at 38 to 48, correct. 40 are correct, possibly, and out of 40 means I have attempted 65, and out of 65, in 40, I am what? Having a surety that these are right. Might be 1 or 2 are going to be incorrect. Rest of the 12 to 14 question, I am sure that half of them they are going to be correct. Half of them. So if half of them they are going to be correct, out of 15, 7 to 8 are going to be correct, still I am in positive. But in order to cross what? In order to cross the cutoff, I need to take risk. So that is called risk. If you will take, there is a chance of getting fail. And nobody is going to back me. But when you know that if I will take a risk, somebody is there to back me. On somebody I can rely. Fine. So financial market grows when economy have a solid foundation. So those economies who are having a solid foundation, it is possible to expand the financial market. So this is what we are seeing in Indian economy right now. So last 25 years, Indian economy has shown their resilience. Fine. 2007 global financial crisis. Even before that, 1997 Asian financial crisis. 2007 global financial crisis. Then again 2012, 2013 financial crisis. But Indian economy's performance was relatively better in comparison to any other economy. Plus, after COVID, the performance of Indian economy, again, it is better than any other emerging economy. So this resilience shows that the Indian economy have a solid foundation. That is why our financial market is able to what? Expand. So sometimes what UPSC do, rather than asking any concept specific based question, they make general statement. Fine. And they will test your general understanding about the topic. Consider the following statement about fundamental right. Okay. But they will not mention any article. They will write only simple statements and they will test your understanding how you understand fundamental rights. Similarly, in the economy, they will ask certain questions. What do you understand by macroeconomic stability in the economy? Macroeconomic stability in the economy. Consider the following statement. So what is macroeconomic stability? Simple term. You will not find this term explicitly explained in any book. No book have explained what macroeconomic stability means. But if you see the newspaper articles, books or journals or expert opinion, they always try to use this term what? Macroeconomic stability. Anywhere chief economist, chief economic advisor of the government of India, finance minister, finance secretary, RB governor, all of them just randomly go and pick their speech. Any speech. If they are delivering any speech, randomly pick any of the speech and read. You will definitely find this term what? Macroeconomic stability. So it is very popular term. But if it is going to be asked in the exam, many people will find it difficult to comprehend it. What macroeconomic stability means. So if all the factors of economy like inflation, GDP growth rate, fiscal deficit, tax revenue, if they are having a sustained growth, if they are having sustained growth without any big problem, then we say that we are having what? Macroeconomic stability. What things? Inflation. Fine. Second, GDP growth rate. Third, fiscal deficit. Fourth, tax revenue. So if any country is having such stability at where? Inflation. Though inflation in India is relatively high, touching 6% at a point of time, but it is not crossing 6%. Fine, not crossing 6%. Fiscal deficit should be at 3%, but it is at where? 4.4%, 4.6%, 4.8%. Fine, 4.8%. But though the performance is not what we have expected, 3%, it is at 4.4, but still it is better than any other country who are having 5.5%, 6%, or even 8%. So still India's fiscal deficit may be not able to match what we have expected, but still it is stable below what? 5%. So that is why it's stable. GDP growth rate, again, we are expecting to match the GDP growth rate of 8 to 9%. Fine, 8%, 9%. And do you know that in the first decade of 21st century, like from 2007 to 2012, 2007 to 2012, there was a 11th five-year plan. And in the 11th five-year plan, the target was 9% GDP growth rate. And then Deputy Chairman of Planning Commission, Mr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia, he has given a statement that though we have fixed the target of what? 9%, but we have a capability to reach double-digit growth. Double-digit growth. And he also made the statement that we are expecting, now listen this term very carefully, we are expecting that Indian economy is going to enter in the super cycle. Fine, what statement he have mentioned? Super cycle. And he has mentioned this statement in the context. He said that the high growth rate of China because of sustained super cycle. And we are also expecting that India is going to have what? Super cycle. But 2007 financial crisis, then 2012 financial crisis. So India was still able to clock what? 8.3% GDP growth rate in that 5-year phase. When world was struggling to grow by 3%, 4%, Indian economy was still clocking at what? 8.3%. Fine. So if you will see the performance of India's GDP growth rate, maybe again it is not as expected by us, but still it is relatively better than any other economy. So this is the basis why we say that we have macroeconomic stability. Fine. Now the term, what is super cycle means? Fine. And specifically, this term is used for commodity super cycle. Commodity super cycle. Do you know what is business cycle? A cycle of what? Boom and bust. High economic growth rate, boom. And when economic recession is there, income, employment, consumption, savings, all these things are what? Decreasing. Then it is called as what? Recession or bust. So boom and bust economy runs in this cycle. Fine. So when this phase, boom phase, it will go for longer duration. Generally, boom and bust will be there in an economy in the span of 7 to 10 years. So in the span of 7 to 10 years, you will find both boom and bust. But when an economy is going to have what? High growth rate phase for the longer sustained period. 8 to 15 years, you are seeing high growth rate phase. So boom is not only for 3 to 4 years. This boom is going to sustain for how much? Cycle. Fine. Super cycle. Understood? What is super cycle? So just don't look at me. Keep writing. Fine. I am telling you again and again. I am using many of the words and you have to keep writing. It is not pravachan. Okay. You are not here to just listen the pravachan. The purpose of these classes is what? See, the economic survey class can be finished in 4 hours. It is very easy to finish. Just give the summary of each and every chapter. Like I have asked you to write the summary of first chapter. So just giving an idea what is happening in the economy, then write the summary. Then again, what is happening? Summary. Total 13 chapters. Summary will take maximum to maximum 20 minutes to explain and write. 20 multiplied by 13. 20 multiplied by 13. 260. 260 minutes. Divided by 60. 4 hours. So, as I said that this economic survey class can be finished in what? Can be finished in 4.5 hours easily. But the reason what we have decided to go for extensive class is whatever the key concepts, understanding, analysis they have used in the survey, we will do in the extensive manner. Fine. And when we'll do the extensive manner, a lot of key terminologies for understanding purpose will come, which maybe you have not studied in the class, even in my class. And the purpose was to avoid those things because they are more relevant in the context of what? Understanding in the economic survey and budgeting. Fine. So take this session seriously. It is really going to help you to develop a good understanding plus solving the questions in the exam, whether it is prelims or mains. So what is super cycle? Sustained long-term high growth rate is called what? Super cycle. Now what is prefixed? Commodity super cycle. So when a commodities means goods and services which we use. So what goods and services which we use, their prices are rising consistently for the longer duration. The price of goods and services are keep rising on continuous basis for the longer term. Then we use the concept what? Commodity super cycle. Now question is, sir, if the price are consistently rising, how people are able to purchase it? Because price of the goods are rising, but at the same time, people's income is also what? Rising. So China have seen that commodity super cycle. Fine. Specifically from 1995 onwards till then 2015. 1995 to 2015, China have seen the phase of what? Commodity super cycle, which has contributed an immense growth rate. And that is why China was even able to clock double-digit growth in GDP. So China is a country in the recent times. Any big economy, if I talk about the big economies, fine. So China is the only big economy in the recent times which is able to clock what? Double-digit growth rate. India was about to touch, but not able to touch. Fine. But China was able to clock sustained 10%, 11%, 10%, 11% growth rate. But now even Chinese economy and Chinese economic planners, they know that now it is not possible to grow with what? Double digit. Able to maintain 8 to 9%, it is more than sufficient. And see the paradox. As economy is going to grow, the percentage possibility is going to what? Decrease. As economy will grow, the percentage possibility is going to what? Decrease. Why? Because if a person is earning 100 rupees income, fine, so it is easy for him to get what? 25% or 30% growth rate. But an economy which is already having very higher GDP, numbers are very high, then even a person is earning what? 1 crore. In fact, I told you this example in the class also. Growth rate of Gujarat versus Bihar. Under the chief ministership of Narendra Modi, he was the chief minister of that time. In 2008, 9, 10, that was a phase where it was expected when 2014 election will happen. Either Nitish Kumar ji or Mr. Narendra Modi, either of the two is going to be the prime minister candidate from whom? NDA. So why? Because both are having visionary leadership. They are having sustained in the power for the longer duration. And on that basis, they have compared the growth rate of these two states. And when they compared, they found that the Bihar's GDP was clocking with 13% rate. whereas Gujarat's GDP was clocking with 8.7%, something like that. So who is performing better? As per the stats, Bihar is performing better. But what is the total value of Bihar's GDP? The value of Bihar's GDP is somewhere around 10 lakh crores. Fine, 10 lakh crores. Whereas Gujarat's GDP is somewhere around 213 lakh crores. So a state which is having 213 lakh crore rupees worth GDP, 8.7% growth rate is much higher than what? 13%. So if you have asked some person ki how much salary hike you have received, fine, and he said that I received 30% hike, and other person saying that I have received only 5% hike. So don't laugh on the 5% person. Fine. Without just getting the idea of how much he is drawing. If his annual package is of 1 crore and he got the growth rate of how much? 5%. How much income increased? 5 lakhs. And the other person who got the 30% hike, his annual package of 6 lakhs. So he have an annual package of how much? 6 lakh. And he got the hike of how much? 30%. How much it is increased? 1,08,000. So still his rise in the income is what? Is less than how much he got the total hike. So this is why when economy starts growing, you cannot expect from the economy to grow with 9%, 10% GDP growth rate. So the phase of India to have 9% GDP growth rate is over. Not possible. Clocking 9% is impossible. Clocking 7%, 8%, even if you are able to sustain at 8%, it will be what? Very good. If USA is able to sustain 4%, if USA is able to sustain what? 4%, it is a big achievement for Donald Trump, which is looking unlikely. Fine, but able to sustain what? 4%. It is a very good growth. In fact, if you remember, for world economy, what we have mentioned, 3.3. If world economy is able to grow 4%, it is a big deal, because entire world's GDP 4%. It's a big amount. Fine. So do not get disappointed. Our Indian economy is growing by only 8%. Pakistan economy is growing by 28%. Fine. Even if they will grow by 28%, by that they are able to purchase atta. Not beyond that. Not beyond that. Their economy is running on what? Debt. Fine. So in this economic scenario, GDP growth rate plays important role. And here financial institutions and financial market play a significant role. As economy will grow, the economy's dependence on only financial institutions is going to decrease, and the role of financial market is going to what? Increase. See, two terms. Financial institutions. Fine. Financial institutions. Who will come here? Banks. NBFCs. Financial institutions. But when we go for what? Financial market have debt market, equity market, mutual funds. So all these comes where? All these comes under the category of what? All these comes under the category of financial market. When economy is not growing properly, or it is in the initial stage, then financial institutions only play a significant role. Because people are not going to take a risk to put their money at where? Financial market. As economy starts growing and macroeconomic stability is properly visible, gradually which market? Financial market will also start growing. And then the rapid growth in the financial market can be properly visible. So when government is not increasing, then government India put financial institutions, especially banks, for other purpose. Now these days, India's public sector banks are playing more constructive role in order to push forward government's initiative of creating digital public infrastructure. Fine. So now the financial institutions are more and more focused towards where? Digital public infrastructure. It doesn't mean that they have not playing any role for the economy's development. They are playing, but gradually the role of financial market is also what? Increasing. And when economic survey have analyzed financial institutions, especially banks and NBFCs, they have used earning, they have used return of assets and returns of equity. Fine. So these are the three indicators. Apart from that, they have also used two indicators, GNPA and NNPA. Sorry, NNPA. GNPA stands for gross non-performing assets. NNPA stands for net non-performing assets. So these are the four indicators and two terms. What terms? One is haircut and other is provisioning. Fine. So on the basis of these, it is found that India's financial system, India's financial institutions, they are stable and steady. Fine. Now, what is this? Please write it down. First, write what is NPA. Write it quickly. NPA stands for non-performing assets. If principal or interest amount, if the principal or interest amount is not paid, then that asset is classified as a non-performing asset. Then in the next line, write gross non-performing assets minus provisioning. Gross non-performing assets minus provisioning is equal to net non-performing assets. Net non-performing assets. Now write what is provisioning. What is provisioning? The capital set aside by banks to cover all possible losses. To cover all possible losses is known as provisioning. So tell me one thing, if banks are doing higher provisioning, okay, my question to you is, think and banks are doing higher provisioning, then what will be impact on their profitability? Number one. Number two, chances of default. Two things I have asked. If banks are doing higher provisioning, then the possibility of their profit and the possibility of being default, what will be the impact? Profitability will increases. Profitability will R for rise, F for fall. Don't say his. Profitability will fall or rise, fall, and the possibility of default. Possibility of default will nonsense. It will fall. higher provisioning you are doing now. What is provisioning? The money you have set aside to face what? To cover loss. So if you already have put a good amount of money, then what is the possibility of having a loss? Rise or fall? See, why banks are doing higher provisioning? That is one thing. Banks are doing higher provisioning because they are willing to do it, or they are poured by RBI. What do you think? They will be poured by RBI. No, you have to do the higher provisioning. Why? If you will do the higher provisioning, means what money you have to set aside. You can't do the business with that. You have to put aside. You have to put aside, then do the business. So your profitability will what? Decrease. So bank want to decrease the profitability? No, they want to increase the profitability. So what they will do? They will opt for less provisioning. Then RBI took their sticks. Are you going to do it or not? Then bank said, okay. I'll do that. So they have increased the provisioning as per instruction of whom? RBI. So if the provisioning will increase, fine. So more money will be set aside. So if more money will be set aside, then the possibility of having default like situation will what? Fall. But profitability will also what? Fall. Understood? Now question is why RBI is pushing banks? Why RBI is pushing banks to go for higher provisioning? When RBI will see that banks, in order to go for higher profitability, they are giving loan indiscriminately, especially unsecured loans. Fine. So for purchasing the things, like a person is having a moderate income, earning 30,000 rupees per month. He purchased an AC. Fine, he purchased an AC. So his family is very happy. He purchased an AC. I said, why you have purchased AC? What is your problem? I said, it is none of my problem. It is going to be your problem. It is going to be your problem. Why? You have purchased that AC on what? You have purchased this AC on EMIs. And it's a true story. Back in 2019. Fine. I told him, do not purchase the AC. It is not required. Fine. I understand, sir. My kids are having a lot of problems. Okay, fine. But your income do not allow this. He purchased an AC. And unfortunately, what happened? Lockdown came. So in the lockdown, what happened? Most of the coaching institutions, they are running in what? Online mode. So in the online mode, do you think that PUN is required? Absolutely not. So the coaching owner, what they did? Coaching owner said that because you are working with us for the longer duration, so we will pay you. But as we have cut down the salary of entire staff, we are also going to cut your salary by half. Fine. Now the amount of salary he can pay only 2 EMIs, which he have on his head. He cannot feed their kids. He cannot pay the online fees of their kids. And he is asking money from everyone. And everyone was having the problem. And he was having an argument with me, and that is why he is not very keen to talk to me for the money. But ultimately he dropped a message. Sir, I am in big trouble. Can you help me? I said, what happened? So he narrated the entire thing. So I said, okay, I will pay your EMIs. I'll pay your EMIs. Fine. Later on, you can pay me back. So, see what happens. It is not his fault. Everyone wants to have a better things for their kids and family. So he is trying to do that, and he is having less knowledge and information. He is not having the consequences ki what will happen. Otherwise, why he will be the PUN? He can be the IAS officer. He is having the limited ability. So what banks are doing? Banks are saying that ki 0% EMI pe le lo. Purchase on 0% EMIs. 0% EMIs means what? You need not to pay any interest. Only principal amount you have to pay, and you can pay in 2 years. So just I asked, Acha, tell me which AC you have purchased. He said that I have purchased 1.5 ton of Lloyd's AC. I said, Are yaar, you can purchase Tata wala na? No sir, actually I have purchased the split AC. Fine. So the problem with these people is what? Those people who have less exposure, when they got exposed, they are more vulnerable. So these people who are having less income and banks are providing credit to them to purchase what? White goods, appliances. They comes under the category of what? White goods. So banks started giving loans to that what? White goods. So that is why what happens? Their risk weightage assets is going to rise or fall? Rise or fall? Answer? Rise. So if the risk weighted assets is going to rise, fine. So capital adequacy ratio is going to rise or fall? Capital adequacy ratio, tier 1 capital, tier 2 capital divided by what? Risk weighted assets. So denominator is going to increase. If the denominator is going to increase, capital adequacy ratio is going to what? Fall. Fine. And if they will fall to particular level, then who will poke you? RBI. And RBI saw that the rise in what? Unsecured loan. Now can you correlate it why RBI do consumer sentiment survey? RBI every month conducting what? Consumer sentiment survey, so that RBI can track what people are purchasing and what level, how much they are spending the money on household goods, how much money they are purchasing on white goods, how much money they are spending on what, so that they can get the idea from there. And from getting the idea there, they got this banks are exponentially focusing on what? Unsecured loans to increase their what? Profitability. So high number of unsecured loans means banks are at risk. So RBI asked them to go for what? Higher provisioning. So if higher provisioning will be there, first of all, banks' ability to face the crisis is going to what? Decrease. But at the same time, banks' ability to provide loan is also going to what? Decrease. Understood this thing? Is it clear? Acha, many of the things which you are writing, fine. So all these things which we are discussing in the class, I have asked we are uploading that thing in the YouTube channel also. So see, for example, if you have not complete clarity on the topic, fine, just put the timestamp. How? So how smart people will do this thing? When they know that I have what? I have an online access of the video. How they do that? So they started the class, they note down the time, they started the timer. And any crucial concept came, lecture number 3 at 40 minutes, this concept came. So now when you are reading your notes and you find that crucial concept which is not clear to you, you immediately went to the online lecture, went to what? 40 minutes and you got the idea. Otherwise what happens? The online lecture access is only going to cover the space of your hard drive or cloud, nothing else. It is of no use. Tell me honestly, many of you are having legal or illegal access of videos of coaching institutes. How many of you have completed all those videos which you have downloaded? Raise your hand. You are raising your hand or you are just doing this? She almost like no, it's not possible actually. And this is the reason why it is not possible. Because when you start watching the video, you have some doubt in the lecture number 7, suppose. And lecture number 7 is 3.5 hours. Fine? Or 4 hours lecture is there. Now you have to find a ring in the ocean. So there is a smart way. You have to start the timer when the lecture started and you got the crucial concept, mention the timestamp. And then it is going to be what? Just a click of mouse and you can go to pinpoint that timestamp and you can understand the concept again. So this is called smart work. Okay, so these concepts are little bit technical in the nature, and it is quite possible maybe you will forget. So if you have this doubt, mention the timestamp of the lecture. We have started somewhere around 5:15. 5:15. But from next class onwards, always start the timer, so that if any crucial concept is there, videos are available in the YouTube channel. You can go there and get it back. Okay. So provisioning, have you understood the provisioning? Sure. Provisioning. Now the other concept is what? Haircut. The other concept is what? Other concept is haircut. And you have to focus on the haircut, because haircut you will not find in Ramesh, Ganesh, Mahesh, Dinesh, Suresh. Fine. So that is why focus on this haircut concept. So suppose that bank is having NPA. Bank is having NPA. And bank is having NPA of, suppose that 5,000 crores. And bank is not able to recover it. Then what bank will do? So there are dedicated companies. They are known as assets reconstruction companies, ARCs. Asset reconstruction company. Fine. And they are specialized to deal certain non-performing assets. Fine. They are expertise in dealing what? Those non-performing assets. And that is why their name is what? Assets reconstruction company, ARC. Assets reconstruction company. So now bank will do what? When bank has given up, it is not possible for them to recover that 5,000 crore. Then the bank will sell this asset to whom? ARC. Now ARC also know that the asset values may be how much? 5,000 crore. Even when they are going to recover the money, they are also not able to recover properly. So now bank and ARC will negotiate. And after negotiation, what happened? After negotiation, it is decided that ARC will pay how much? 2,500 crore for this asset to whom? Bank. Fine. So here we will use the term that bank went for 50% haircut of NPA. Bank went for how much? 50% haircut of that NPA. Now suppose if bank have accepted 30%. Bank has accepted how much? 30%. So how much haircut will be there? 30% haircut. If the bank is ready to accept 30% haircut, then how much bank is going to receive? What is the asset value? What is the asset value? 5,000 crore. Haircut value 30%, that is how much? 5,000 multiplied by 3. 5 multiplied by 3. 1,500 crores. So 1,500 crore is accepted as a haircut. That means bank is going to receive how much? 3,500 crore. Why? Because bank has accepted 1,500 crores of what? Haircut. And this is why knowledge of economics is required when you are going to discuss any economic related matter in the parliament. So most of the parliamentarians, they are blaming government. Ki government is doing favor for whom? Government is doing favor for whom? Favor from Adani, Ambani, and they are waiving off their loans. Don't ask this silly question. Just simply ask the government, how much haircut is done by public sector banks in last 10 years? And when the data will come, then entire country will know that ki what happens actually. So this is why haircut is what? It is an actual loss for whom? Bank. Fine, it is an actual loss. So when bank is going to sell off that asset, and agree to accept lower value, then this concept is known as what? Haircut. So you can write this term haircut with this example in your notebook. Okay? Write with the example. Otherwise, you will what? Forget. And not write only one thing. One example. In case number 1, 50% haircut. How much bank lost? 2,500 crore. Second case, bank accepted how much haircut? 30%. What is the loss? That is 1,500 crores. Written? Now write a question. Consider the following statement. Statement number 1. Now it is a very easy statement. Provisioning refers to the fund. Provisioning refers to the fund set aside by a bank to cover potential loss. Provisioning refers to the fund set aside by the bank to cover potential loss from NPA and doubtful loans. NPA and doubtful loans. Doubtful loans. Doubtful. Second statement. Higher provisioning requirements reduce banks' profitability in short term. Statement number 3. Higher provisioning strengthen financial stability of bank in long run. Fourth statement. As per RBI norms, provisioning requirements are uniform for all category of loans. Regardless of assets classification. First statement is correct. Second statement is correct. Correct or not correct? Correct. Third statement, correct or incorrect? Third statement is also correct because higher provisioning will provide much needed long-term financial stability. Now the fourth one, incorrect. Why it is incorrect? Huh? See, if loan is unsecured, fine, higher risk, need higher provisioning. If loan is having low risk profile, then low provisioning is required. So even if you do not know the RBI norm, but simple logic you can use here. Fine. Simple logic you can use here. Provisioning is done for what purpose? Provisioning is done for the purpose of what? Avoiding any possible loss. Fine. And it should not impact bank severely. That is why you are doing the provisioning. So if assets are what? Well secured, then there is no need for higher provisioning. There is need for what? Lower provisioning. Fine. Whereas if the assets are doubtful or they are having higher risk, fine, then higher provisioning is required. Okay, in that context, one means regarding this fourth statement, you can write provisioning requirements. Regarding fourth statement, you can write provisioning requirements are based on classification of assets. Classification of assets as per RBI norm. As per RBI norm. In the next line, point number 1, for standard assets. For standard assets, 0.25%, 0.25% to 1% provisioning is required. 0.25% to 1% provisioning is required. For substandard assets. For substandard assets, 15%. Fine, 15%. For doubtful assets, loan to Vijay Mallya. Doubtful assets, 25% to 100%. 25% to 100%. Fourth one, loss assets. Loss assets, 100% provisioning is required. Loan to Nirav Modi. Loss assets. See the real-time example. Few years back, banks have given loan to Jet Airways. Fine, they have given loan to whom? Jet Airways. So Jet Airways at a point of time collapsed because Indigo came into the picture. Fine, Indigo came into the picture. Why? At that point of time, air travel was kind of luxury. Providing what? When you will reach on your seat, they will give you the hot towel. Many people do not know that what to do. So they are waiting what other will do, I will also do. Right? So hot towel is given, beverage is served, food is being served. So this is the kind of what? Air travel. Indigo came. Hyderabad. They started in this way. Right? No nonsense approach. They are treating luggage and passenger same way. Fine. Sir, बैठो फटाफट. आपको उतारना है. I don't care. And the pilot is left. आप तो गाड़ी तेरा भाई चलाएगा. They are in this attitude. So Indigo means what? No nonsense approach, no luxury kind of a thing. But see, these Indigo now launch what? First class services. They also launched in the first class services. Otherwise, till the last year, no Indigo plane was having what? First class. Even the travel is of what? 5 hours, 5.5 hours. No first class. You have to sit like this. Even it is a long travel. Fine. So Indigo was having this. So what Indigo did, they have cashed the customer and people have switched from where? Jet Airways to Indigo, and that is why this Jet Airways went to the huge loss. And because they are in the huge loss, they are not able to repay the loan which is given to them by a consortium of the bank. Not one single bank, but 3-4 banks have given loan. And when the 3-4 companies are going to make one joint venture, the term is used as consortium. Fine. So consortium of bank have given the loan. So Jet Airways defaulted. Fine. Jet Airways have defaulted. Now it is a proceeding to what? Sell that asset to whom? Assets Reconstruction Company. So asset was sold to Assets Reconstruction Company. Fine. And then one group, maybe you have an idea, Kirloskar Group. Fine. Toyota Kirloskar. So they have decided to revive Jet Airways. But what happened? The haircut banks are agreeing is not accepted to whom? ARC. Bank is saying that we will go for maximum 30% haircut, for example. Whereas those who want to purchase the asset, they are saying that we need at least how much? 40% haircut. Why? Because once we will purchase the asset, we need to revive it. And for the revival, we need more money. So this is why this amount of haircut is required. So that thing went for almost 4 years. Almost 4 years. And finally it is decided, no deal. And there is no chance of what? No chance of revival of what? Jet Airways. So the plane owned by Jet Airways, they are still in the hangars, but now these assets are going to be what? Sold. Now this asset means what? Bank loan given to Jet Airways. Now this loan is in the category of what? Lost asset. So for the lost asset, how much provisioning you have to do? 100% provisioning you have to do. So banks were holding 100% provisioning of what? 100. Suppose they have given the loan of what? Suppose that they have given the loan of 10,000 crores. So they have given the loan of 10,000 crores. So banks have to set aside how much? 10,000 crores. Because it need what? 100% provisioning. Fine, 100% provisioning. And this is why when you have took the loan and you have defaulted, that is why a bank is too much worried. Why? Suppose that you have took the loan of 1 crore and you have defaulted. You have defaulted. So once you will default, suppose that is a home loan. So home loan will now come under the category of what? Substandard. From standard it will come to what? Substandard. And under the substandard how much? 15%. So loan value is 1 crore. Now bank have to set 15 lakh rupees aside. Why? Because provisioning of 15% is required. So bank have to put aside how much? 15 lakh rupees. If bank was having that money in their pocket, bank can do the business and get the interest. But now bank have to put what? 15 lakh rupees aside in order to fulfill what? Provisioning norms. And that is why banks are getting what? Too much aggressive. Ki we have to recover the loan. Why? Because loan recovery, one thing, they are getting loss on that asset. The loan they have given, that is in the loss. But because of that loss, and if it is converting into what? Standard to substandard, substandard to what? Doubtful, doubtful to what? Lost. The provisioning need to be what? Increased. So this is why banks become little bit aggressive when it is about what? When it is about provisioning. Understood? Now, provisioning and haircut you have written now. Now write what is return of asset. What is return of asset?
Sir, is provisioning similar to capital adequacy ratio or both are very different?
No. Capital adequacy ratio is what? Capital adequacy ratio, you have to do what? Tier 1 and Tier 2 capital, total amount and risk weightage assets. Whereas in the provisioning, you have to put that money aside. Fine, you have to put aside, you cannot use that money for any other purpose. Whereas in the capital adequacy ratio, you can use the money for the secured assets. For secured assets, for example, you can use that money into what? GSS. But here you have to set aside. Understood? Now, that concept is return of assets. Right? It is a measure. It is a measure to find out how a company or bank, is efficiently using its asset to generate profits. To generate profits. Fine. Net profit, total assets multiplied by 100, that is what? ROA. Return of assets. Now, other is return of equity, right? ROE. It measures how a company, here in the case bank, this is for normal company, but because we are discussing bank, so it is used in context of what? Bank. How a company is generating profit from shareholders contribution, shareholders contribution through equity. So suppose there is a company A and all of you are shareholder in that company. Fine. So company offered you the share. So every one of you have purchased the share and the total value of the share purchased by you is how much? Suppose that the share you have purchased is having the worth of 10 crores. So how much company have received from you? 10 crores. So 10 crore is an equity which is received by whom? Company through whom? Shareholders. And company is generating profit of, suppose that, 1 crore. So company is generating profit of how much? 1 crore. So that is company's profit. And what is the shareholding of what? Shareholding contribution is what? 10 crore multiplied by how much? 100. So what is the value of ROE? That will be how much? That will be how much? 10 crore or 10%? Return of equity is how much? 10%. Whereas, suppose if the return of equity, suppose that it is only how much? 0.5 CR. Fine. Point means company is generating higher profit or less profit? Company is generating less profit. So if the less profit is there, then the return of equity will be high or low? Low. How much? 5% here. So a company which is having what? Company which is having less ROE, it shows that their profitability is relatively what? Low. So if you have low ROE, ROE stands for return of equity. You might be find that why we are dealing all these things. They have never asked in the exam. Fine, they have never asked in the exam. But what if they will be asked? So you want to go for retrospective or prospective? Prospective, but have also eye on what? Retrospective. Fine. And there is always a possibility that terminology which is used in the economic survey, they can ask in the exam. So return of equity, and what is return of asset? Return of asset means total asset, how much total asset you have. So out of that total asset you have, how much profit you are able to earn. Again, same thing here. If company's ROA is less, if company's ROA is less, that means what is less? Numerator is less. And what is in the numerator? Net profit. So numerator value is less, that is why ROA is less. And if ROA is less, that means net profit is less. Fine. Net profit is less. So net profit is less and ROE is also what? Less. So that means company is not performing well. Company is not performing well. Understood? So if a company is not performing well, is it right to put your money in that company? No. So those people who are looking for finfluencers and their nonsense statements and reductionism, fine, focus on company's balance sheet, what is their ROA and what is the value of their ROE. So if ROA and ROE is stable and gradually rising, that means it is a right thing to invest in that company. In fact, if you will get the data of these two of last 10 years and you have put that data in what? Infogram, and you found that it is consistently what? Rising. So it is a company where you can put your money safely rather than looking for any influencer. Like, follow and share. Right? No need to go for like, follow and share. You have to go for what? ROA and ROE. Understood? These two things. Third concept, that is net interest. So for net interest, I have made one small mistake. Rather than NIN, it is actually NIM. not AIM, NIM, net interest margin. Fine. So the net interest margin is the next concept. Write it down. What is net interest margin? Net interest margin is a key profitability metric, key profitability metric, METRIC, net profitability metric used in banking, to measure actual profit of the bank by calculating the difference between interest earned on loans and interest paid on deposits. Fine. So if we have to calculate in the percentage point, what is NIM? Net interest margin. Fine. Net interest margin. Then what is? Interest earned on loans minus interest paid on deposits. Fine. Divided by average interest earning assets, and then you have to multiply this thing with what? 100. So you will get what? NIM, net interest margin. Fine. Net interest margin. Just a minute, hold on. Look on the board, then you can write. Understand it first. So suppose banks is earning the interest of 10,000 crores. Fine. Earning the interest of how much? 10,000 crore. And at the same time, bank is paying the interest rate of what? Suppose that 8,000 crores. 8,000 crore. So what will be the value? 2,000 crore. And their asset value is 10,000 crores. Their average asset value is how much? 10,000 crore. And this is how much? 2,000 crores multiplied by 100. So what is net interest margin? How much percent? 20%. So 20% net interest margin is there. Fine. If net interest margin is 10%, if net interest margin is how much? 10%. Means here maybe either it is 9,000 crores, either it is 9,000 crore, or it is what? It is 10,000 crore and it is what? 9,000 crores. So either bank is earning less and paying more. Only then the bank's ability to go for net interest margin is going to what? Decrease. And do you know that this net interest margin comes every month in the newspaper? Every month. Because RBI calculates and publishes the data, and that data is well informed by the newspapers. But have you find this net interest margin concept even in the magazines? Answer is no. Because those people who are putting the data in the magazines, they are also average people who prepared for the UPSC and they got not selected. And even they are not very good. Sorry for this, but they also have a limited ability. They are compiling the data, they have the deadline to prepare that data compilation. For example, on an average, one magazine is having how many pages? 90 to 110. 90 to 110, not beyond that. 12 years experience. Fine. 90 to 110 to 120. This is the number of pages average magazine have, which is maybe popular in the market. Fine. But out of that 110 pages, 120 pages, how many pages are allocated for the economics? 8 to 12 page. 8 to 12 page. Fine. 8 to 12 pages allocated. On an average, 1 page of the economy is there. In a month, how many pages? 30 pages. 30 pages of economic news is there. So they have summarized 30 pages of news, and because people like graphics, fine, people like graphics, fine. So that is why they have to put diagrams. Unnecessary diagram is there. Making an image of bank. अरे क्या जरूरत है यार बैंक का इमेज बनाने का? I know bank how look like. And what matters what bank look like here? In the magazine, I don't care what it look like. I need a proper data. Fine. Why you need so much very good presentation, flow charting and all? You have to draw on your own. But see what happens. There was a magazines in the market which they are not doing this graphic and all. And they lost the market. And they're forced to do the same presentation, what? Graphic and all. Fine. So always remember that when the demand is going to rise, quality is going to decrease. When the average people will come and compete with you, leave that space, because you cannot beat them in nonsense. You can't beat them in the nonsense. So stay away from such kind of things. Focus on newspaper, read it properly. Yes, newspaper reading is difficult, but only for 2-3 months. Fine. But by the 2-3 months, you are able to understand few concepts, and then it is going to be what? Ease. But that is going to pay rich dividend in comparison to what? Going for magazines. So use the magazines. I'm not saying that you do not use the magazines. Use the magazines for revision purpose. But primary source of knowledge should be what? Newspaper. So net interest margin. Now see these 3 figures. NIM, ROA and ROE. Now see what your economic survey says that. Your economic survey says that we have observed there is a decline in what? Net interest margin. But still, ROA and ROE is stable and resilient. ROA and ROE is what? Resilient and stable. And that is why we came to the conclusion that Indian banking system is what? Stable and steady. So maybe the profitability of banks are what? Decreasing. Why? See, when we calculate this, so A minus B upon what? Upon their assets which can generate income. So A is what? The profit they are earning. A is what? See, it is little bit technical in the nature. Please focus. What is A? What you are earning. What is B? What you are paying. Now, when we calculate ROA, when we calculate what? ROA, here is what? Net profit upon total assets. So, in the case of what? Here what we are calculating? Net profits. Here what we are doing? Profit and the amount of interest we are paying. So, if the interest rates on deposits are going to rise, if the interest rates on deposits are going to rise, then what will happen? Then the net interest margin of a bank is going to what? Fall or rise? Fall. Fine. Whereas if here, now here net profitability is also going to what? Fall. But if the asset value is also going to fall, if the asset value is also going to what? Fall. See, this numerator is what? Numerator is decreasing. Numerator is decreasing. But same time denominator is also decreasing. So the impact on ROA and ROE is not going to be as crucial as in the case of what? Net interest margin. So actually what happens in the banking system, the asset value, the rise of the asset value. So asset value is rising. So if the asset value is rising, denominator is rising. So if denominator is rising, numerator need to be rise, otherwise value will be what? In a general case, numerator is there, denominator is there. So if numerator and denominator is there, fine. If the value of denominator is increasing with a higher rate in comparison to value of what? Numerator, the overall value will fall. Similarly, if it is shrinking, with higher rate in comparison to what? Numerator, value will increase. Fine. So, see, government plays with the data. Government carefully said that ki what? The return of capital is what? Sustained. Why it is sustained? Because of this effect. Fine, because of this effect. But the problem is that politicians, they are not going to attend this live session. Fine. They are not going to attend this live session. Otherwise, sometimes, there are certain MPs, there are certain parliamentarians, they are very interested. They are very interested to know the things, how it works, and then they frame the question and they ask the question in the parliament. Not all MPs are like that. There are certain MPs. I do not want to mention his name because now he's in jail. Right? But we have an encounter with him. He was there and we are not knowing him. He is a sitting MP. And he is a what? Strong man of UP. But he was listening us keenly. Acha, how this concept work? Acha, this. Then he said that, can you frame this in the proper manner so that I can frame a question and I can ask in the parliament? We said, why you will ask in the parliament? He said, well, I'm a sitting MP. And when he said his name, then it was complete silence in the room because he is one of the strong men of the UP. At that point of time, now he's in jail, but he became an MP because of his so much power. And we saw like, how this possible? What image in your mind of the strong man? He is not interested in the economy and all, but he was listening us for 45 minutes and he was like writing the things. But ultimately he said that, yeah, I'm not able to comprehend it properly. Can you frame this? We said, why not? Why not? Actually, we went to meet our friend. He was selected in Indian Foreign Services and he came from Japan. Fine. So we went there to meet him. And he went there for prospect of groom. Fine. Because he is searching, with some relative was searching, so they came there also. So we was having this discussion. So he came with this idea, the MRP. You see the MRP on the product, and after the MRP, what is mentioned? What value is there, ingredients are there. But have they ever mentioned on raw material what is the cost? On making what is the cost and what is the profitability of a company? So this is what we are discussing. Company have to explain what money is going to be in the pocket of company, what money is going to the laborers, what money you are going to pay whom? Farmers or those who have supplied the raw material. So what is the cost? So we do not need just MRP. We need proper breakdown. How much money is going to government's pocket? How much money is going to what? How much money is going to be the other's pocket? So we have framed this question and he asked this question and answer was given by State Minister of Finance. And he said that in the light way. Fine. He said that in the light way, if we are going to mention, people stop purchasing luxury goods. Why? In the luxury goods, the price, what they are mentioning, 70% price is of the brand name only. All the luxury items, they are having 70% what they are charging. Even after discount, what they are charging, 70% is what? 70% is the brand value only. So that is why that was what? Rejected. But in this way, government have given an account ki NIM is decreasing, but still ROE and ROA, they are stable, and that is why our financial system is what? Resilient and working properly. Understood this thing? Now, can we go forward? Yes, sir. No, your that session is cancelled, na? Huh? Morning class? Huh? From what time you are sitting here? 7:45. अच्छा 7:45. अच्छा okay, right, next. Huh? अच्छा okay, right, next. अच्छा सिर्फ heading only. Monetary aggregates and role of monetary aggregates and role of reserve money in brackets M0, role of reserve money in brackets M0 and role of broad money M3 in brackets M3 and its impact on money multiplier. Okay, so we will discuss tomorrow. Thank you.